Chris, my man, it looks like we're live.
Hey, what's up? What's happening?
What's up, my friend? Yeah, it's so good to see you, dude. Last time you and I saw each other, we were jumping around like madmen. You know, you were with your wife, I was with my wife. We were at a Date with Destiny at Tony Robbins. That was what, December 2019, right?
Dude, we were the last people to do it before COVID. So yeah, that was such an amazing event. Oh man, that was so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah,
You and your wife, and then my wife and myself. So
that's right, man. It was so good to see you there. I'm sure at some point we'll probably touch on that and the experience. But yeah, so just to kind of set the stage for people starting to come on here, every now and then I like to hop on a live and just record an episode of the Flip Empire Show. And I've been meaning to connect with more successful entrepreneurs outside of real estate because I truly believe there's a benefit that can be gained by us learning from entrepreneurs in different spaces. I think, sometimes real estate investors, they put the blinders on and all they know are the educators and content creators in their space. Yeah. And dude, you have a fascinating story, man. You and I met at a mastermind, like I've met so many of my friends well over a decade ago, right? If I remember correctly, Gary V was dropped in and gave us like an hour of his time right before he spoke, right?
Yeah, this is what, 2008. It was like me, Dustin Matthews, I think Corey Boatwright was there, you. Yeah, it was a crew. That was like the beginning of Gary V. Yeah. We were there, baby. We were there.
Yeah, he was actually, I think he was promoting Crush It. Crush It had just came out. And little did I know, at least, who we would become. But yeah, man. So why don't you kind of, for people that might not know who you are, why don't you give people a little bit of background as far as like your journey into becoming an entrepreneur, and then we'll get into your story, man, because it's fascinating kind of, how you built up a successful business, tore it down, built up an uber successful business, and now here you are enjoying life. So would love to get into that.
Yeah. Gosh, I got started really young, so I'm 39 now, but I accidentally started my first company. So I was 18, and probably like you, I got a car and I wanted to get wheels. So this is year 2000. And I was going to Florida State. And so, a couple days before, I was like, I want to get some wheels before I go to school. And I called up this wholesaler. I found this wholesaler in Miami. I called him up. And I was like, hey, this is Chris with Tunes that, I have a customer that needs these wheels or whatever. And he's like, yeah, $468. And I was like, oh my God, it's amazing, because everyone else was selling for like $1,000. I'm like, I'm going to get a deal. So I ended up getting those wheels. And the next day I ended up driving up to Florida State. Fast forward 2 years later, I was dead broke. I could barely afford like $230 rent, So my buddy's like, hey, why don't you sell your wheels on eBay? And I'm like, eBay, what is that? This is 2002. So I go on eBay and I'm like, oh my gosh, those wheels that I got for $468 are selling for $900. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And that was it. And so I sort of went down this whole path of entrepreneurship. I started selling wheels and tires on eBay. I was brokering tires like all across the world. And I had a 3-bay warehouse here in South Florida, and I was shipping stuff all over. But the one thing I realized is, oh my God, I don't like inventory. So the first year we ended up doing about $250,000, and I'm 19, 20, 21 years old. And I ended up selling that company at 23. And it was like, all right, that's my notch in the belt. And that's, for me, that's what I looked at as. I was like, okay, like this is just this notch in the belt to learn this whole path for building business. And at the time I was like, I loved selling. I loved marketing. I learned some different strategies, like selling stuff on eBay, right? Which, you list stuff, people buy it, really not much to selling or marketing. Yeah. But I learned some things of like bundling and this and that. It's like, I really like that. And at the time I was learning Zig Ziglar and just going deep. And I discovered Jay Abraham and just all these amazing marketers. And I remember sitting in the library and I had a stack of all these like direct response books and copywriting. This is 2005. And I had the Zig Ziglar tape set, a Jay Abraham tape set, and I'm reading these books. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. Like I loved it. And I remember calling my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I think I found it. And I'm like, I love marketing. And that was like, for me, that second sort of pivotal moment in my life where it just created this next path. And this is 2005. Yeah. And I just went deep. I mean, immersed myself, got tons of books, and I just went really, really deep on it.
Yeah.
And still today, I'm still obsessed with it. Anyhow, so through that, I created some companies. I worked together with Trevor, helped him launch Private Money Blueprint back in the day.
I remember.
Created, courses, had a best-selling credit repair book. So I tried a bunch of stuff, and I was like, all right, copywriting, all right, creating ebooks, okay, creating software, and just doing all these things. I was like, all right, I like software. I'm not the guru. I'm not the guy that's going to be in front and sort of build that stuff up, because I figured out, like, all right, I want something to sell. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of friends that were going down the path of being the guru and being the expert. And I was like, oh man, that's not a real, I didn't see it as an asset, meaning like you couldn't sell that business. So through that, doing product launches, I realized, hey, I want to automate SMS, or I want to automate voice broadcasting at the time. And so in fact, when we met, that was 2008, I remember I pitched the idea for like Call Loop.
Yeah.
And fast forward, say the business still runs. It's about 10 years old, which is crazy. And that business is completely automated. There's a whole team in place that runs that. And just through, how do you build a business? How do you, hire people? I've learned so much. Sales Message is the current company where I spend most of my time. And that's a conversational SMS platform, SMS marketing, everything on messaging. And it's very fast growing. I've learned a lot. I made a ton of mistakes, but that's what we'll
my friend, we're gonna definitely get into some of those mistakes, and there's a lot to unpack here as I start to welcome in some of my friends. Kia Charles, good morning. Anthony Kusky, thanks for tuning in, guys. Chris, before I dive into it, brother, I gotta say one thing. I love everything you just shared, except for one thing. Does this mean anything to you?
What, the hands up?
University of Miami. That's the only thing I'm going to throw. You said Florida State, and you kind of lost me. I was like,
I got it.
it. No, I'm just messing with you, man. But all right,
my number 2. So.
There you go. Well, let me dive into several things that I think would really benefit those watching this and those that are going to listen to this on the podcast. I know adults to this day that still don't know what they want to do. And that's okay. If you find yourself in that place, it sounds like you were gifted the opportunity to learn that you fell in love, like you really have a passion for marketing, and then you turn that passion into a very successful, thriving business. What's your advice, having kind of walked down this journey, having built up and sold multiple businesses, for people watching, listening to this that are not 100% sure they're operating in their genius zone, or still not 100% sure what they want to do? What's your advice to kind of discover that thing that lights them up? That thing that, your voice, I don't know if you realized it, but your voice even changed a little bit when you started talking about marketing.
Yeah.
So talk to me.
Yeah. At that time, I was just, I saw it as like, it was like this rabbit hole of discovery. And I remember Jay Abraham said it. He's like, marketing is the ultimate leverage. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. If you can understand marketing, you can understand selling, you can do anything. And so to me, it just became this massive unlock that was literally unblocked. Sorry, I've got all these notifications going on.
You're good.
Cut all this stuff off.
Probably sales message going to work.
Yeah, I've got like WhatsApp going and all that stuff going. So, marketing, when Jay said that, it made so much sense. It was like, all right, if I can master marketing, I can do anything. I can write a letter. I can do copyright. I can do anything. And so understanding marketing to me was just, no one could hold you back. You can write a letter and you can create a great business. And so, to me, that was the one statement that just set it off of like, oh my God, like, yes. And so just went deep on it, because I just knew if I learned this, if there's one thing that I can learn, if I learned marketing, I can do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And so that was that. I think at the time too, I think like the best stories, the best businesses really come from your own pain. Mm-hmm. And, I, in college, even though things were great, I didn't know what credit was. So this gets into a whole other rabbit hole here, but it's a really great lesson. And so, in college, I had no idea what credit was, but I got a $5,000 credit line from the bank. I'm like, 20 years old, you know, like what?
Oh,
Why
no.
is the bank giving me $5,000? In fact, the first credit card I got was through our fraternity because that's how we raised funds. We got $2 for every credit card application. I was one of those dumbasses that got one of those. Anyhow, so I ruined my credit, and fast forward a couple years later, it's my wife and I were in the mall, Banana Republic, Christmas time, and I'm at the front and like, hey, do you want to save 25% off? I'm like, yeah, I know the drill. You're going to run my credit. You're going to do that whole thing. I'm like, fine. Thinking that the world has changed and today is going to be the day. Of course, I got denied and I was like, God, you know, like son of a bitch. I got to figure this out. So, and I was like, all right, let me go down this path. Let me learn this and just sort of study it and like treat it as an experiment. This would be fun. And so went down that. I hired a company. 6 months later, they didn't do anything. I was like, all right, I got to take it into my own hands. And I did. I read a bunch of books. I talked to experts. I like went so deep to figure out credit scores and credit repair. And so in 37 days, I ended up raising my credit score 135 points. I was like, holy crap. So I documented that. And I remember Yannick Silver, this is going way back. He wrote a blog post and it was like 5 ways to motivate yourself. And the 5th one was document and profit from it. And I was like, oh yes, that's it. Let me document this journey. Let me document that. Let me turn that into a course. And if I have that same similar path and I can show people how to do that, that's a great product.
Yeah.
Create that product, became a bestseller and down that. And so fast forward even to today, there's one of my favorite quotes, whether you like the guy or you hate the guy. I love the quote. It's Jordan Peterson. And he says, oh, wow. I'm like blanking out on this.
All right.
He says, yeah, you know, he says, let me come back. Oh my God, this is like my favorate quote. I can't even think of it right now.
You're good, man. You're good. It'll come to you, dude.
We got here. So, oh man, I can't think of it right now. Let me come back to it because it's so good. So I'll look it up.
Well, one of the things, dude, that jumps out at me as I hear you speak, Chris, is that, you know, if you find yourself not knowing what you want to do with your life or what direction to go in with your business, start exploring things. And by the way, I'm not one that believes that you have to turn your passion into a business. In fact, sometimes I think that's a recipe for disaster. Sometimes the things that you love, that you're passionate about, that you turn into a business, end up kind of taking some of the fun out of it for you. So it's a self-awareness thing. You know, going back to Gary Vee, he always talks about self-awareness. And I think it's important that you experiment and discover. But, you know, once you figure out what it is that you think has a lot of potential, that you feel you can solve a problem, because that's what business is. It's solving a problem. Do what Chris did and go really, really deep. What I heard you say in a takeaway was that you completely immersed yourself and you got as much information. And then obviously you acted on that. You went really, really deep. I see too many people kind of scratching the surface of all these different business ideas, and then they don't really go that far with any of them.
Yeah. So here's the quote, and you just spun it. Problems are secret calls to adventure.
Ooh, that's good.
And so it's like, you know, you have path A and you have path B. And so path A is you got a problem. You're like, you got a problem. It's a problem. It's a negative thing. It's a negative thing. And on the other side, path B is, wow, this is awesome. I get the opportunity to go deep on this problem, to talk to other people, to go and figure out, you know, how they solve that problem. I can become a beacon of light to help others solve that problem. And so like it becomes an amazing opportunity. And then there might be the possibility that you can document it and profit from it. And so it's like when you look at, there's this guy I follow on Instagram, his name is @Charlie. It's awesome. You know, and this guy just does so much positive stuff in the world. He helps out homeless people. And, you know, he was really obese at some point. He lost a bunch of weight, but his path is all about positivity. And he is just helping transform or turning these perceived problems into like an amazing opportunity. He's like calling his future. You know, he's calling and just putting it out to the world that I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet that person. I'm going to make this happen. Yeah. And just this, you know, this attractor. And guess what? When you bring it out to the world, people will help you want to achieve that. You know, Trevor, a friend of ours, he has a list of, you know, things like a bucket list. And I think it's public. I don't know if he updates it. And so it's a list of all these things that he wants to accomplish. Like, I want to go, you know, skydiving, or I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, it's a public list. I have one I call it Seize the Day. It's in a notebook, and I've never made it public. But the reality is like, if I made that public and I said, hey, these are the things that I want to do, there's going to be people from around the world that go, hey, I've got a guy that knows that. Hey, I can do that. Or, hey, when you're over there, go here. And so those things on your bucket list become a way for people to work together on, to achieve a common goal. And so, I don't know, there's so much power in one, like the public side of things, commanding like in your own future and turning those problems into like an amazing adventure.
That's
and
right.
It can be a lot of fun. So
that's right. Yeah, no, absolutely love that, man. And the other thing that jumped out at me, Chris, that when you were talking was you started your first business, I think you said 18, and then you sold it at 23. Is your mentality when you get into business to always create something that you have the option to sell at some point? Because in our space, there's a lot of real estate investors that follow the show, a lot of wholesalers, fix and flip investors. In my experience and in my opinion, the vast majority of those businesses are not saleable. Like you can't really exit those businesses. So has that always been something you've looked for when you're looking at a particular business to start or launch, that there's got to be an exit, whether you want to take advantage of that in the future or not? Or talk a little bit about that.
Look, I'm lazy. We all are. And so like at some point, I don't want to work. And, Rich Schefren said this years ago. He says, do you have a business or do you have an income? Oh, shit, I got an income, right? And so, the idea for creating a true business is something that, one, runs without you, and two, that at the end of the day, you can exit for a multiple. And so, I never really liked the business that was built on a personality, right? My mom's in real estate. She's transaction-based. That's not a business. She has an income. If that stops, no income, right? And so the business is really about creating something of value that can run without you. I mean, Call Loop runs without me. I'm not the magician. I went to go, the process of selling it. And the guy's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. And so, that's really what you want to be. Now, again, it took me a while to figure it out. So like I got into MLM and I was like, this sucks. Why am I selling something and making 6% and losing friends in the process?
Yeah.
I'm not doing that anymore. And then I created an ebook. I'm like, oh, this whole idea of leverage, selling stuff without selling it, right? Product versus services you can't scale. Product I could sell as much as I want all the time, any hour of the night. Okay, I want to be in the product business. And so, trying all these things, doing consulting. All right, I wanted to learn marketing. I did all that. Okay, great. What did I learn from that? Really just breaking down, be in the product business, right? Okay, well, what type of product, right? How don't ship the big stuff. That sucks. Don't have inventory. All these sort of things that I put together as my own checklist for what's the ultimate business? Software. Thank God I got started in that early, because the software multiples today are 10x returns, 15x returns, 20x returns. That's insane. I just had a friend and they're like, yeah, we're selling for $50 million, $50 million, and that's small, right? There's other, my friend just sold a company for $200 million. Like what? And so, you talk about these bonker things. The reality is it's not as difficult as you think. Now, software is hard, right? Been in the game for a while, understand a lot, but it's about sort of the leveraged opportunity, but that's in your skill set. I like to build software. I love products, right? I lean into that. I'm not going to be a Russell Brunson. I'm not going to be the marketing expert and guru and that sort of thing. I love to build products. Fortunately, that's my outlet for solving problems, providing value to the world. And so, that's what I love to do. It's what I like to do. As much as I love marketing, I don't really love it as much as I did.
Right.
I love building a product, So.
Chris, I'm curious, man. When you determined and you realized, hey, I want to be in the product business, and I like the idea that through marketing, I can sell when I'm sleeping, right? And it's not a service that's not scalable. How did you kind of come across that the problem you wanted to solve for businesses and for entrepreneurs was messaging online, text messaging? Talk a little bit about how you actually kind of planted your flag on, hey, this is where I want to be, because there's a lot of real estate investors that leverage text message marketing to, connect with motivated sellers. And that's a great marketing channel for many investors. Now, granted, there's some potential challenges now with that. And we can speak to that, but I'm curious how you ultimately, because you were way ahead of the curve years ago when it came to text message marketing and just online messaging. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, Call Loop came from the idea or the problem of like, oh, cool, we can automate email, we can automate this, we can automate that. Well, how can we automate voice, right? And so that's where the Call Loop came from. And so I was like, all right, well, very quickly, I was like, all right, well, people want texting. And this is 2012, 11. And people back then were like, oh, that's spammy. I was doing a pitch conference at IT Expo in Miami. It was Jamie Siminoff, who at the time ran unsubscribe.com. Today, he sold Ring for $1 billion to Amazon. There was this guy, Craig Walker, who invented Google Voice, and then another judge. They were the ones. And I was up there pitching Call Loop. And then after they ask you questions like, oh, isn't this spam? I'm like, no, it's this and da-da-da. And they were just like, no, it's never going to work. Meanwhile, Craig ended up building, this, Dialpad and some huge companies. But at the time, people were like, this is spam. This is crazy. People are not going to want to do this. But it was opt-in. And so today it's just become the way that that people do business. Now, in 2015, I sent you this. But in 2015, I was tired. We built a business, we built Call Loop, but at the time it was like breaking and stuff was going wrong. I'm not a developer. And so, the team that we had at the time wasn't really, my co-founder, Ronnie, was never full-time. He worked for ADP. He was making 150 grand a year, could never pay him that much. And so the software was always breaking. And at the end of the day, it was always like me that had to wear all of the problems. Yeah. And so I wrote a 3-part blog series. It's called The Death of Call Loop. And it was me just telling the story of like, man, I built this business I secretly despised. I did not like, all the things in the business that were going on. And it was very cathartic for me. And I sent it out to about 30 some odd thousand people, the entire list. And I was just like, screw it, I'm going to send it out.
And many of those were customers.
Oh, a lot of them were customers, you know? And so, I mean, there was over 400 comments, people like, how could you do this? This is so disrespectful. On the other side, people like, I get it. I'm in your shoes.
I remember when you sent that out, man, it created a big buzz in the space. I remember.
Yeah. And, and had a bunch of people, oh, let me buy the company, thinking that we're going to die. But what it did, it was like, I needed a reset. And so the end of that story was really follow my journey as I reinvent myself, but also as I reinvent Call Loop, because I knew there needed to be a different path. I could not continue to keep going down that path of like, oh my gosh, this is draining and whatever. Yeah. So it was follow my journey on the Second Chance startup. And that ended. And it was like, I needed to do it. Like, I didn't really, I needed to do it because it was me. It was my business. Right. And so after that, I was like, all right, I have like 500 people that are going to follow this journey. Oh, shit. I got to like do some stuff now. And so we were like, all right, let's rebuild Call Loop. And I put a team together and this and that. And then about a month into it, I'm like, how long is this going to take? They're like, oh, it's probably about 1.5 years. I'm like, oh no.
You're in for it.
So, but I was like, all right, well, I had this other idea. It's called Kick a Conference. Let's roll this out. Spent a year, 12 months building this, $100,000. We made like $1,500 in sales. And I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. And I don't even want to do it. And it was it was like Uber conference for marketers. Right. So, but that summer I was like, there's something about two-way texting. People are wanting conversational stuff. Call Loop didn't really offer it. And this is 2016, so a year later. And I hired a developer in Sweden to create like a little MVP, paid him $5,000. And it was just sort of like a little prototype. It didn't really do anything, but it just was like me just committing to like the idea. Mm-hmm. That was the summer. And then fast forward in October, we shut down Kick a Conference. And I pitched my co-founder at the time. I was like, hey man, here's this idea. And I was like, but don't do anything. Don't start coding. Let me go and sell it. And I knew this concept, pre-sell it before you start anything. And I knew that. Why did I go and spend a whole year trying to build this product that no one wanted? Lesson learned. And I knew not to do that. It's like 101, right? So I said, Andrew, don't do anything. Let me go out and sell it. And so I sent an email, webinar coming up, boom, boom, boom. 48 hours later, I do a webinar and make like $4,500 in sales. I'm like, all right, we made more money, like triple the amount of revenue we made it spending a year. I said, all right, this is it. Mocked the whole thing up. And I basically just pre-sold me. Like I went into Photoshop and designed some stuff up. and what I want it to look like, and just sold the idea. People were like, I want it. And that was the beginning of really sales message as that, the kernel of the idea. Right now, today, it's just transformed. It's become so much bigger, but it all stemmed from, all right, people have that problem, but I don't want to design anything or build anything or go down that whole wasting of time. And then in the beginning, we really just started to tranche it. And so we ended up rolling out beta, I think in March of that following year. So that was end of October, November, December, 2017, March, we rolled into a beta. That whole year was a beta. And then we really, opened up the business for sale in the beginning of 2018. So,
well, dude, there's a couple things I want to underscore, and then I want to hit the pause button and rewind for a second. But there's two things. You hired a developer in Sweden and paid $5,000.
Yeah.
That was probably the catalyst for you. I think you even said I was committed to the idea. And had you not actually spent that money, who knows if you would have continued to go down that path, but you paid $5,000. And so now you were committed to it. And then I love the fact that instead of like spending 6 figures trying to develop this two-way texting platform, you said, hey, I believe in this, but like, let's get proof of concept. Let's pre-sell it. And then use some of that seed money to kind of like launch it. And I see so many people doing the opposite, is they go out trying to like, they go out in the middle of the street and they're trying to sell a banana to people that don't want bananas, instead of just asking them, hey, what do you want? What do you need? Like, what are your challenges? Yeah. And so that might be business 101 kind of thing, but there's so many people that go in the opposite direction with that. Yeah. So I really appreciate that about your story. But where I want to kind of go back is, what was it about Call Loop that I think you said you secretly despise? What had you built and what was wrong with the business? Because I think a lot of people are going to be able to like resonate with that, where they're in a business now they've created that they don't particularly enjoy anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I got into it with a different reason, a different purpose. And so, you go 5 years later, you're like, you look around and you're like, this sucks. I actually don't like this business, but I'm stuck in this business. And so I remember hearing about this concept called a zombie startup. And, Call Loop's a startup. And so I was like, but I'm looking around and I'm seeing all these other businesses and everything. I'm like, gosh, this is not what I envisioned in the beginning. It wasn't growing like crazy. It wasn't this, but the reality is it's a software business and it was not innovating. And to me, at my core, I love to build product. But when you're stuck and I can't build product, which is what I want to do, I feel dead. And like, but I can't code. I can't build. I can come up with all the ideas of what I envision it to be. But because I couldn't code, it was like crippling me. I was like, and so just being able to express, like, that's my art. My art is building great product and solving those problems and nuances and that boring little detail stuff that somebody may overlook and go, oh my gosh, how could you spend so much time on that? Like, that's my beauty, right? And so to me, it was just, I couldn't innovate. I couldn't create things. And I would hear it from friends like, hey man, can we do that? And I'm like, no, we can't, because we don't have a great development team. And so, it was at this revenue point where I was just like, you weren't growing, you weren't dying, you were just like trudging along, and you couldn't really, no one wanted to give you money. And I went out to go and raise money. I was in San Francisco for like a month.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was out there for about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And I was like trying to raise money. Like, you don't have an investable business. I'm like, but I do. And I didn't. And I knew I didn't. And so,
man, it would have been fascinating to be a fly in the wall if you would have. You talk about documenting your journey. I wish you had a camera crew following you around during that process, because
I know
that would have been incredible.
Oh yeah. It was a very weird time, but it was like, I was 30, early 30s, and so I was at this, just like, this is not what I want. I've got to do something. I need to call it. I need to freaking call it. And so that email 3-part series was me calling it. And then that next year, I sort of took that next year like off in a way, in a sense that I needed to reset and like rethink about what is my future here. What do I really want to do? And how do I build something that I really can enjoy? And so Sales Message became basically this, this Phoenix Rising event where I was like, I had to burn that thing down, but I didn't burn it down. I just needed to completely separate my identity away from that business to reinvent myself into this next business, this next opportunity. I wanted to give it my all.
Yeah.
And so burn that down to build up this new thing. And I realized what I enjoy, the marketing side of things. I don't like writing a blog post, and I don't like a lot of that marketing stuff, but I know the strategy. And so, I see how product, you look at any successful business today, that's a product-based business. Your Dropboxes or any product, it's all viral, right? It's not really marketing. Marketing is fuel in the fire, but they're creating engines and viral loops to let the product do all the hard, heavy lifting. And so, engineering product in a way that helps you acquire users and helps you grow revenue. And so, I like to think of those ideas, and we've got some cool stuff that's coming out that just, once you light the fire, just, and then marketing, you just add more fuel on top of it.
Yeah.
But I don't need to do what I would like sales letters and stuff anymore in a way. It's like, how do we engineer product to light it on fire? So
yeah. Absolutely love it, man. Well, I wanna publicly acknowledge you and commend you, man, because I know it took a lot of balls to send out that Death of Call Loop, that 3-part blog, and I kind of wonder, man, had you not made that difficult decision to kind of tear it down to build it back up, how different would your life look like today? And I don't know that you know that answer, but imagine.
I was depressed. There is no doubt. I was really depressed. And it was because my identity was all in the business. When a thing broke, they texted me. When a thing didn't work, they emailed me. When this didn't work, I had like Cameron Harold like yell at me because it didn't work for an event that he was at, presenting at Vistage and EO. I don't know if you know Cameron Harold. And so it's just like, I had all these like influential people like telling me like, you suck.
Wow.
And I was like, no, this is not what I want my future to be. And so I had to call it, and I didn't care, like no one else it wasn't their business. It wasn't anybody else's business. And so, those comments, people were tearing into me. But again, it's so easy for someone to comment on the surface level and see how disrespectful that was. But in reality, what it came to is, I don't want to stand for having a superior product. I don't want to stand for, not giving the best. I don't stand for you saying, I want this, and me having to say, no, you can't do it. And so it was like me wanting to be a better person, a better entrepreneur, a better CEO, and then also creating a better company, and so that was just my moment where enough is enough and I have to change. And it was the best. It was the absolute best decision I ever made because I was depressed, I just didn't.
Wow.
Hated it.
I appreciate the transparency and vulnerability, man. I'm throwing up a quote. Greg Pinio, who I had on the podcast a month and a half ago, he said a quote that I think will probably stick with me for the rest of my life. And if you're not watching this, the greatest tuition you ever pay is the tuition of pain. So if you're gonna go through the pain, don't waste it. Understand it's a rare opportunity, so utilize it. And that's exactly what you did, man. And that's what I'm hoping people hear, is that no matter what kind of adversity, obstacles, pain you're going through, there can be something big that comes from that experience. Wasted. And you took advantage, man. And so kind of to fast forward now, what does sales message look like today? What's your life look like today? Because I want to show people what's possible when you make those difficult decisions and you kind of tear down something you've built up and put a lot of sweat, equity, and tears into. But if it's not serving you and if you're not happy doing it, the time to do something is yesterday. And if the second best time is today.
Yeah. I mean, Call Loop today is, I spend an hour a week on it. It's not what I enjoy. There still is some of those vestiges of the past that I'm like overdone with. And there's a team in place that runs that. And so, they deal with the problems. And so I sort of look at myself as, all right, I just bought myself a multi-million-dollar business. Without buying myself a multi-billion-dollar business, I'm an investor in Call Loop. And so it's a different world and a different lens to look at to go, okay, let the team figure out those challenges and issues, right? And that's on the Call Loop side. It's a good business. It's not going to be a huge, winner. It needs innovation, it needs a new team to sort of take it to that next level. And then on the sales message side, it's like, we have the absolute best team. I get to live in my genius of creating product and, thinking through strategy and building out the future of what it looks like. I mapped out over the weekend, like our future. And it's like, damn, that looks awesome. Like, I can't wait. And I know that we can do it. versus I know we can't do it. Why am I wasting my time? And so how does that future lend itself to creating and retaining great talent, right? If you don't see the future, and if that future is not even possible, well, then how is anyone else going to reach that? And so, we just have such a really great development team. We're hiring and bringing some of the great leaders. We're well positioned to create an amazing company. And to me, it's not so much about the revenue. It's like, I get to actually see the vision for what I imagined a decade ago to actually happen.
That is
right?
so cool.
And bring great people along in that process. And, we're growing 20% a month. Like, if you ever plot that along on a chart, it's crazy growth. And so like, we're in this, up and to the right. If you follow any startups, we're up and to the right and growing really, really, really quickly. And with doing things that like we're not doing enough, and there's so much more that we can grow into. And so, we're building a really great product. It's all in text messaging. The future of it is in more messaging, channel-based type stuff. Conversational SMS. Our model is like HubSpot. So HubSpot has, their sales tools, they have their marketing tools, they have their support tools, and they built this entire ecosystem around, their ideology. And our philosophy is, textize your business, right? So you can use SMS for lead gen. You can use it for, reminders and appointments. You can use it for conversions. You can use it for driving tons of sales. You can use it for getting reviews. So everywhere along that journey, you can use messaging. And, you're not reliant on Facebook where they can just sort of, kick you out. There is regulation, obviously, but so it's just, wow, I get to build the future. And I'm so excited because I know it's possible. Before it wasn't. So,
well, man, I know you, I know your character, your integrity, and it's obvious for anybody that watches this or listens to this, the passion and energy that you have behind the, what you guys are currently doing, the product you guys stand behind, and the vision for where your company's moving forward. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because, again, I think your journey is fascinating. I love the fact that you tore down an already successful business because it was no longer serving you. And I think that can really connect with people that feel stuck in their business. The second thing I wanted to do was, I know text messaging is a big marketing channel for a lot of successful real estate investors out there. And you touched on that. You said regulation. This might not be your area of expertise. And one thing you've really highlighted on this podcast is that you've surrounded yourself with talented people, with a great team. And so you don't have to have all the answers, kind of like Henry Ford back in the day. He presses the button and he can get the answer. But can you speak to whatever knowledge you have about the regulation and how real estate investors and entrepreneurs can still leverage platforms like yours and still kind of stay on the right side of things?
Yeah. So here is it in a nutshell. Okay. So if you look at email, right? Well, email, you can't just start sending out mass email. That's called email spam. And Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, you name it, all the ISPs or ESPs they created tools to ensure the authenticity of those emails, right? So you set up DKIM, SPF records, all that sort of stuff to either get in the inbox or get in the priority tab. And so SMS traditionally has been sort of the wild west of messaging. You have short code, long code, all this sort of stuff. And so, but because of the rise of messaging, well, the carriers have to create their own DKIM, SPIF, the same types of, checks and balances to ensure that the right messages get to the right people from real companies versus, a Chinese spammer sending out mass SMS. They need to set up these things. And so what the carriers want to know, think of the carriers like Google and Gmail and Yahoo. The carriers, T-Mobile, Sprint, they want to know two things. Who are you, right, as a company, as a brand, and what are you wanting to send? And so those are the two big things that they want to know. Right now, they don't know that. And so they're like, I don't know who you are. What type of messages are you sending? All right, we're just going to blacklist it and flag it. Are you sending a link? Okay, great. We're going to filter those and, all that sort of stuff. So they're creating those spam catches and filters on SMS to ensure the integrity of the channel. Because the problem is when you have a lot of people abusing it, the integrity just gets eroded. And now that channel is not effective anymore. And so in order to keep it true, they need to set up a lot of that. So at the end of the day, they want to know who you are and what are you sending. There's a new rule that they've been working on for a long time. It's called 10DLC, a 10-digit long code.
Okay.
So you have a 305 phone number and you want to send out messaging. Yeah, you could spin up a phone number and start sending that stuff out, but it's sort of like you just got an email address and now you're starting mass sending on that email. And they're like, whoa, dude, like it's brand new. You just got it like 45 seconds ago. Google knows that, and they're just going to put that right in the spam inbox. But when you set up DKIM and you set up SPF records and you set up all of those things that are what the email wants, then you increase your deliverability rate. So in cold email, there's called like warming up the email or warming up the domain name, right? Because they want to see, okay, we understand the messaging that's going on. The same thing is happening on SMS. So if you get a brand new number, you start spending people, and now it's got a link in it, they're gonna be like, whoa, what? No, this ain't gonna fly. So 10DLC is who you are and what are you sending. So in sales message, we have the beginnings of 10DLC because it hasn't rolled out. But basically you tell them, here's my company name, here's my address, here's my EIN or my DUNS number. And they want to know that because they want to look it up and go, hey, is this a real company or is this just some dude in his basement trying to send out mass text messages, right? Yeah. And so, there's a cost and a fee associated with that. And some of the carriers are working through that. But this then tells the carriers like, look, I'm a legit business. I want to use SMS as a channel. In fact, here are some of the sample messages I'm going to send. It could be appointment reminders. It could just be engagement. It could be, all of the ways in which you can use SMS. And so that's what they want to know. If you plan on doing anything in SMS, you got to do it, right? And so either you get a local number, which you got to go through 10DLC once it's sort of open and available. We have one of the best ones. Twilio is doing a whole case study on how we're approaching that problem. And then you have toll-free numbers. So you're starting to see a lot more brands and businesses using toll-free instead of a short code.
Right.
A short code, you don't want a short code because one, they're $1,000 a month, billed quarterly, it's $3,000 a month. Now, if you're a brand and you want to send out mass SMS, short code's great. But a toll-free it has the properties of a short code, which is mass SMS without the cost. But you still have to go through an approval process to get sort of high volume SMS built out. One thing to keep in mind too is shared short codes are banned. So if you've been sending SMS on a shared short code, meaning, hey, here's the code, everybody uses it. Call Loop uses a shared short code. Sales Message has one. But those are banned. They will be going away. It was supposed to be in June. Who knows when it's going to be? They've been sort of putting the goalpost out a little bit further.
Right.
Then shifts. What's the strategy? As a real estate investor, as somebody using that, Trevor Mock's a great friend of mine at Carrot. And, I love SMS, but at the same time, how can you add SMS on top of a strategy to engage with real-time leads, right? Using direct mail, using SEO, using text messaging, using all of these strategies that at the end of the day, how do you build a solid foundation? J. Abraham has a really great concept, he calls it the power Parthenon. And if you can imagine the Parthenon in Greece, it has all those columns, you have that roof on top. Most businesses are built on one. Well, what happens when that channel gets gone? Well, your entire roof collapses. And so how do you build a multi column or multi channel strategy?
Yeah.
Yes, use SMS, use inbound, use AdWords, use all these different ways because who knows? And
ideally they complement each other, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Look, you generate a lead, you're not going to call them because they ain't going to pick it up, right? So you're going to text them and you want to engage with them over SMS. So if you're acquiring those leads, automate an SMS and engage with them in real time, book that phone call or at least engage with them over SMS. Because if you're dealing with consumers, they ain't picking up their phone. Right. And so SMS is the best way to engage with them. You have email, you have phone, and you have SMS. That's about it, right? As far as a communication channel. And if no one's picking up their phone, well, that's not working. If they're not going to get their email or if it's going through spam, well, SMS is that next best way. And so, I know a lot of the real estate investors, they're using all those other tools that are out there and sending out cold SMS and everyone's freaking out because their messages aren't being delivered. Again, it's the same thing that happened in email is the same thing that's being pushed into SMS. And so you just have to ask yourself, is the future of that strategy going to be around in 6 months, or is it going to be around, or is it going to be dead in 12? And so I don't think that's going to be dead. It's just you have to follow the rules. And so, I know Rob Swanson, I know a lot of the guys, right? And so we've had conversations around how to use SMS. And so, cold SMS. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I get it.
The carriers change daily. So you don't know, do you need to put your brand name in the front? And look, you just want to follow the rules. If you want that channel to be effective, don't skirt around and be as white hat as you can. And brands are asking, hey, put your brand name, sales message : so-and-so, is it okay if I send you messages and whatnot? So, you'll get away with it for a bit to scoot around it, but the carriers are starting to filter. So that's the result.
And I know that obviously you guys are, you have your finger on the pulse and you really have a grip on the rules. And obviously you've built your platform to make sure that, people remain compliant. And it sounds like you guys can kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys can kind of assist and help people in making sure that they're doing it the right way and that so it's most effective for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not going to hold their hand, but there's ways in which you want to get it delivered. First and foremost is if you're sending out text messages into a group of people, the number one red flag is going to be a link. So the carriers are going to see that, hey, here's a link, it's a brand new message, never been sent to that person. The probability that is not something that they opted in for or whatever, don't send them a link, right? So if you want to increase your deliverability, don't include a link.
Right.
Also, if you're going to put free mortgage, why bother, right? You just got to look at it from an email perspective. Yeah. Is Viagra pills and all that sort of stuff going to work in SMS? No. And so how do you be real? And at the end of the day, it's all about creating a conversation. And so I think a lot of people, a lot of marketers get into using SMS as only this push, when the best customers that are seeing the best results are ones that are creating conversation. Yeah. Right. And so, the carriers, I don't know if it's true or not, but in my experience is if they see that the channel is used for its intended purpose, a local number is used for conversations, short code used for one-way mass messaging, right? Toll free used for mass messaging and conversations. And so if you're using, a local number for its not intended purposes, which is sending out a mass message that they're seeing duplicates across the board, like, oh, wow, they just sent out 1,000 messages with the same phone number with the same text, not used for the intended purpose, they're going to blacklist it.
Right.
So create a conversation because, that's really what, in the real estate investing business, that's really what you want to get to. And so the best thing you can do, how do you open up a conversation is you ask a question. Right? You open that loop, hey, notice your house. Are you interested in selling? Or I don't know. There's probably some great templates that you guys have in that world that work really well. So
yeah. No, but I'm glad to hear you say that. There's no substitute for putting the work in, because like you said, man, all entrepreneurs are lazy and real estate investors are no different. People want the easy button. We live in a microwave society and we want to be able to send 5,000 text messages and have all these quality motivated seller leads coming in. But the fact of the matter is that you need to engage with them, build that rapport, have that conversation if you're going to use text message platforms. So obviously you guys see at the bottom of the link, if you're watching this, I do have an affiliate link. Really believe in Chris and the product he's built, the team behind it. So if you guys want to check that out, there's a free 14-day trial, flipempire.com/sales MSG, or you can just do /sales message. That'll take you there as well. So Chris, man, as we start to wrap this up, do you hear me or am I getting some feedback?
No, I hear you.
Okay, perfect. Dude, you're a young guy, man. We're probably around the same age, more or less. So take us back, 15, 20 years. This is a question I ask from time to time, but if you were to be able to bottle up and package all your knowledge, all your experience, everything you've gone through in building, selling businesses, hiring, building a winning culture, etc. What's the one thing you wish you knew when you were first starting that you want people to hear loud and clear that they can go ahead and implement now?
Oh boy.
I know that's a loaded one, by the way. So if you need a minute or two, I get it.
Yeah, I didn't realize when you have really great people that are extremely competent, what that difference looks like. And so, I've had co-founders along the way, and, you put one against the other and it's like, oh my God, wow, what a difference. And so, having great people, you can't build a business by yourself. That was a realization, but that was also like a badge of honor. I was like, I'm going to build a business by myself. And I think early on you're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And I'm going to do it all by myself. And in reality, if you really want to build a great business, you got to get great people. And so, the difference between an A player and a C player is like 20x. What we got done in 8 weeks, with my current co-founder, with what we tried to get done in 18 months, we got done in 8 weeks what the other team got done in 18 months. And it's and you have to make those calls as a CEO. At the end of the day, it's a business decision. And to think that I suck at a lot of stuff, but the people, finding really, really talented people that have been there and done that, and that buy into your vision and make them a part of it. My co-founder has equity in the business, and so his upside is really big, and I want that. I don't want to do it by myself, and I can't code, I can't do all these sort of things. But having great people that buy into the vision, that also have been there and done that. I think, but also there's everybody along the way has been awesome. I've had amazing relationships. I've had amazing team members, but the realization is, they can only take you so far, and I can only take myself so far. At some point, I'm going to get moved out into a different role. And I'm sort of moving myself out of these roles that I'm not great at, but I had to wear it to get there. And so some of those folks are going to get you here. But then the realization of all right, we need to level up the game. And I talk to a lot of friends and co-founders, folks that too, and they're like, whoa, we're here, and I got to make some tough decisions that are best for the business and the company in order to achieve that big grand vision. And so there are people that will get you to point A, but then they're not going to really get you to that second level. And I think, having that conversation early and often, where everyone can still be a part of that, but knowing when it has expired, I think is something to be cautious of. But, you can build a great business getting to a certain point, and it's always people that are going to help you get there. I could do a way better job. I think culture and all this sort of stuff, it's difficult in the remote environment. I'm not your hoorah guy, I'm not going to be your hoorah guy behind it. I'll get excited, but I'm not going to be your I don't want to,
Well, man, this dialogue has been, in my opinion, insanely valuable. I really believe people are going to get a lot out of this. And the one theme, Chris, to kind of put, close the loop on this whole conversation, no pun intended, is, you referenced numerous times throughout this live and podcast, surrounding yourself with talented people, hiring the right people, building a winning team. You just talked about it. I asked you for one thing you wish you knew, and you referenced that. It's just talented people, the right people. And so many real estate investors are always trying to go cheap on talent. I've made that mistake as well. I'll call myself to the carpet. And so you shouldn't be looking for how do I get people for the least amount of money, but it's how do I find the best people, make sure they have buy-in, align with your core values, fit your culture, and build from there. Because it's only, you even said it, you can only go so far with talented people. Imagine a business that doesn't have talented people, and there's no buy-in, and there's no core value fit. So
and that in itself is that is a talent, to maintain that, to keep that. And we've lost great people because of culture, and it's like, all right, lesson learned. How do we have that not happen again? And, no business is perfect. And, people come into any business and like, whoa, wait, this isn't what I expected. And so not to say it's sales messages like that, but it happens, and, when you're fast growing, things change quickly.
Yeah, I get it, man. Well, my man, we will wrap this up. For those of you who are watching this on Facebook and tuned in, really appreciate it. Kia, Anthony, John, Jeff, and several others. And for those of you listening to this on the podcast, the one thing I always ask is look for that one nugget, something Chris may have shared with you that if just applied, if you're intentional about it, the way Chris was in building his business and tearing it down and building it back up, if you're intentional about it, it can make all the difference in the world for your business. And then more importantly, for your life, because we all build businesses to serve us and to impact others as well. So Chris, man, I really appreciate, I'm grateful for the friendship and for the relationship. It's so awesome to watch your journey from 2008 to now 2021 and where you're at. And, and it's not to say, you get kicked in the mouth from time to time and you've made mistakes and a ton of lessons learned that we'd be here for days if we were both sharing our mistakes and lessons learned. But really appreciate you, man, everything you're doing. And where can people connect with you, reach out to you, and, just find out more about what you have going on to follow your journey?
Yeah. On salesmessage.com, that's our main site. We're rebranding that. That's going to be fun and exciting. And then I'm on Instagram. So Chris Person, it's more family stuff. If you're looking to get great words of wisdom on business, it's probably not the place, but that's where, if you want to follow the journey, we can go.
Yeah. Well, man, we're both family guys, and I love to see pictures of your beautiful family, and you guys just living your visions, and your business allows you to do that. So I appreciate you, man. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you subscribe so that you're notified every Monday and Thursday when new shows come out. Every now and then you might see me pop on a Facebook and actually record one of these episodes live. So if you want to see more of that, just reach out to me. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, you know where to connect with me. Just let me know. Chris, my man.
Thank you so much.
Have a great summer, buddy.
You too. Thanks, everyone.